Oh, sorry, didn't see you there. You know, the Jeep Grand Cherokee has always occupied a sort of awkward space in the market, finding itself somewhere between premium and mainstream SUVs. It's not quite on the same level as something from BMW, Audi, or even Infiniti, but it's definitely a step up from the Ford Explorer or even the Nissan Pathfinder. Regardless of where it stands though, if there's one thing it does better than virtually all its competitors, it's head into the great outdoors. And the best way to do just that is behind the wheel of the Jeep Grand Cherokee Trailhawk. So let's check it out. You know, it takes some real guts to go out and spend upwards of 50 grand on an SUV and take it out on the trail, but that's exactly what this Trailhawk is best at. Now, the good news is it's got the same bones as the $30,000 Laredo, but the Trailhawk gets all kinds of added goodies to make it just that much more capable out here on the rough stuff. And no, I'm not just talking about the body cladding and those shiny red tow hooks on the front. Now, the trail we're on right now is pretty aggressive. The snow is a little bit deceiving because it maybe doesn't make it look all that serious, but I'm telling you that this is not for your average sport utility. No, we're not in Moab, but this is a pretty serious test of what the Grand Cherokee is capable of. Now, the Trailhawk is fitted with standard air suspension, which gives it almost 11 inches of ground clearance. We're talking Wrangler territory here. This isn't your average SUV, and it's not going to have any trouble getting over rocks and stuff out here on the trail. And I'll tell you right now, there are plenty out here. Now, our tester has the optional 5.7 liter Hemi under the hood, which is good for 360 horsepower to go along with 390 pound-feet of torque. It's not, however, the engine that I would go with. For that, I would choose the 3-liter EcoDiesel. Unfortunately, that's not available right now. Fiat Chrysler's in a little bit of trouble with their diesel and the EPA, which means it's not available to order. So this 5.7 liter will have to do the trick. The base engine is a nice one. It's the Pentastar V6 that Fiat Chrysler puts into just about anything it can think of. However, it just doesn't have that added kick needed if you're going to turn your Trailhawk into even a part-time trail rig. The advantage of either optional engine out here on the trail is the extra torque that helps get the Jeep out of jams. The disadvantage of the optional engines is the extra weight they bring to the table. Out here on the trail is no different than out on the track. Weight is your enemy. The Hemi engine adds almost 300 pounds to the Grand Cherokee's curb weight compared to the V6 version, and go with the EcoDiesel and it's almost 450 pounds heavier. I'll tell you, that's an awful lot of extra weight to be carrying around in an SUV that you're taking out onto the trail. Now, the Trailhawk also has what Jeep calls its Select Terrain Traction Management System. And what that does is it tailors things like throttle response, transmission, transfer case, all sorts of different things to the conditions you're driving on. You can switch it to sand, you can switch it to snow, or you can leave it in auto mode and let the Jeep figure out what it's doing as it goes along. it's pretty handy to have, especially when you're out here on a day like today with all of this slippery snow underneath the Grand Cherokee. It definitely helps when it comes to traction. You don't have to be thinking about it in the back of your mind. The computer's doing that thinking for you. You know, with or without all of the extra stuff that the Trailhawk brings to the table, the Grand Cherokee is an awful lot of fun out here on the trail. I personally love four-wheeling because it's like a chess match. It's not about raw power. It's about negotiating obstacles, figuring out the best way around or through them, and coming out the other side. This thing does a tremendous job. It is a little nerve-wracking being out here in a vehicle that costs this much, but it doesn't have any issues handling any of the things we've thrown its way today. Between the snow, the rocks, the water, it's done a great job of overcoming it all. It's really impressive, and hey, what do you expect? This is a Jeep after all. That trail rated badge, yeah, it's a little cliche, but it definitely is earned. As great as the Grand Cherokee is on the trail, it's out on the road where the average Grand is going to spend most, if not all, of its life. And I'll tell you, it's perfectly capable out here too. It's smooth, it's pretty quiet, it offers a pretty well-rounded package. A few things that stand out about our tester in particular. The air suspension is really cushy. I'll tell you, this thing kind of floats down the road like an old Lincoln. It's really comfortable, but it's sort of weird getting used to. It doesn't really do a whole lot on the rebound. It definitely absorbs the bumps, but it just kind of floats over them and doesn't really do much to settle down right away. Now, one of the benefits of going with this optional Hemi engine is the power it makes. Put it in sport mode by pressing a button on the dash and the throttle response picks up just enough to have a little bit of fun. When you put your foot into it, the hammer really drops in this thing. Our tester also features the optional active safety group, which adds features like adaptive cruise control, forward collision warning, lane keep assist, all those fancy new safety features that people are looking for. But the cool thing about the adaptive cruise control is that it also features standard cruise. The adaptive cruise control system works pretty well, but it is a little bit jerky. I noticed the same problem on the new Jeep Compass. When it comes to applying throttle or brake, it just is a little bit jarring and can be a little bit lurchy at times. Whether you've got adaptive cruise control engaged or not, the Grand Cherokee is a pretty smooth drive. There's not a whole lot to complain about. It's smooth, it's quiet. Steering is pretty responsive. There's plenty of throttle response. It's a pretty well-rounded package on the road. Now, as an added bonus, the active safety group also features a park assist system that will park the car in both parallel and perpendicular spots on its own. I don't normally use these systems, but the one in the Grand Cherokee works pretty well. It does a good job of spotting spaces and doesn't need a whole lot of input. All you need to do is modulate the throttle and the brakes when it asks you to and shift it into park, reverse, drive. You know the drill. It's a pretty good system, and if you're not a fan of parallel parking in the city, it definitely will come in handy. Inside the Grand Cherokee is as roomy and comfortable as you would expect. There's plenty of space in both the first and second row, and there's a good amount of cargo room in the back. Trailhawk models get leather and suede seats that are both heated and ventilated up front and heated in the second row. It also gets this massive panoramic sunroof and a great Uconnect infotainment system. You know, it's not the best infotainment system on the market, but it's pretty good. I prefer the new version in the new Compass, but don't be surprised if that update does come to the Grand Cherokee sooner rather than later. All in all, our tester's interior is a pretty well-rounded package that's perfect for families. It's comfortable, it's roomy, it's got tons of amenities. However, it will cost you quite a bit. Just to get into a Trailhawk model, you're looking at around 40 grand, but once you start adding stuff like that rear seat entertainment package, it's gonna add a couple grand to the price tag. It's definitely a lot of money for what is a rather small mid-size SUV. Keep in mind, this thing isn't available with 3 rows, which could be a deal breaker, especially when you consider that for this price, there are plenty of options in both the mainstream and premium segments that will get you 3 rows of seats. You know, this Jeep Grand Cherokee Trailhawk has impressive off-road chops and can easily go where most other SUVs simply can't. In reality, most are unlikely to leave the pavement, but the good news is the Grand is just as comfortable there too.